Hello, my name is Aaron Nace. I'm the founder of Learn.com. Welcome to the Workflows podcast.
Aaron, it's been a long time since we talked. The last time we talked, I can't believe it's been this long, but was when I had the last podcast for the last company I worked at. So crazy that it's been that long. I can't believe it. It shouldn't be that long from here on. but it's so nice to have you on. It's nice to see you again and to chat. I'm excited for this.
Yeah, it's so good to see you again. And I know time just keeps flying by. Here we are still doing it and loving every day. So it's going really well.
For sure. So we're gonna dive right into things here. Now, as most listeners of the show already know, I'm typically speaking with photographers that are actively, shooting, doing weddings, doing family sessions, whatever it might be. While you might still shoot these days, you're primarily educating, which is fantastic. You've been doing it for so long. You're extremely good at it. So I want to approach this conversation from your experiences for different workflow aspects as somebody who is not only doing it yourself, but also and teaching, but also like directly working with many photographers who have different workflow questions, different ways that they need to approach how they work with their photos. So the first thing that I would love to hear from you, of what is your take on the photographers that photograph RAW versus the photographers that photograph JPEG. And I'm asking because one, I know just from the leading up to this conversation, this was a topic that was important for you. And also at Imagen, we support both of JPEG and RAW shooters. And most of our AI profiles by far are RAW, but many people ask for built-in profiles that are JPEG. So I want to hear from you. RAW versus JPEG, what, why, how, all the fun stuff.
It's a really good question. I feel so I really love photo editing. I love photography. I love to take pictures. I've found, very early on that, the camera is only going to get you so far. And using post-production software, you can really draw out so much more of a photograph. And kind of like just bring it true to life to maybe how you saw it in person, whether your highlights are a little bit too bright or your shadows are a little bit too dark. The more information you can capture with your camera, the more information you can work with when you're editing that photo in post-production. And so for me, shooting in RAW just kind of like gives me that ability to really dial in and get the most out of my editing. I've talked about this in kind of like did side-by-side comparisons in the past, but really the big thing for me in terms of RAW is the color. Let's say you photograph something and your white balance is off and you're shooting in JPEG. Maybe you photographed a wedding and it's inside and everything just kind of has like a yellowish tone to it. Everything just kind of like looks like the artificial light. With a RAW image, it's really easy to change your white balance and bring it back to a cooler tone, and it's going to look a lot more natural. With a JPEG, you can change like the white balance. However, it doesn't nearly come across as like a natural change. It's almost like if you start off with an image that's a little bit too yellow and then you try to make it cooler, it's almost like you put a blue filter on the image. Like the image doesn't tend to look as natural. It tends to just start looking like you just, kind of have like a low opacity blue covering the image. So for me, like RAW versus JPEG, white balance is kind of the biggest one. Like, yes, you do have more information in your shadows, midtones, and highlights. So if you want to recover that information, like it's there. But white balance is kind of like the main determining factor. Why I prefer to shoot RAW, but I do understand why a lot of people like to shoot in JPEG, and if it works for their workflow, then that's fantastic. And different people love photography for different reasons. Some people really don't like the editing side of photography, and that's totally okay. They want to take the pictures as, you know, they want to deliver them to the client as quickly as possible, and they don't want to spend a bunch of time on the computer. And that's totally okay. It's down to personal preference. So I think, you know, if you have a workflow that works for you and it's working for your clients, then no real reason to change things up. You know, every artist is going to approach photography, you know, as in a different way. You know, the way that I always approached it was like I was creating conceptual images, and I would do an entire day's photo shoot for one photograph, you know, whereas if you're shooting a wedding, you were the total opposite, right? You're taking many, many, many photos, and you want to work as quickly as possible. So I would say it's all about the workflow that works for you and like what you would like to get out of the end product.
Yeah. I think a big factor of it is storage, which I know we're going to get to that topic as well, it'll be a good, you know, full circle once we get there. But on the topic of white balance with RAW versus JPEG, one thing that I love from my own behind the camera part of my workflow is I have my cameras set to black and white.
Okay. Yeah.
In RAW, because one, I am colorblind. So I don't see perfect color anyway, but I also find that I can focus more on the subject and light and textures and contrast way better in black and white than I can with a color photo. So when I'm looking through my EVF, when I'm looking on the LCD, it's black and white. When it actually is imported into Lightroom, it's showing in black and white. But because it's RAW, the color data is there, right? It's just set to monochrome, basically, straight out of camera. Now, if I did this in JPEG, I just have black and white photos. Right? Yeah. Color's gone.
No
it's all
chance.
lost.
Yeah.
Right. So for anybody who's like me who's doing this, they can't do this in JPEG because now what they did is just basic, unless they just want to shoot black and white and that's it.
Yeah.
So that's another aspect similar to color balance, white balance, the fact of removing color in camera, when in reality it's still there, which is a beautiful capability. Cool. If you wanted to set if your camera had a sepia mode and you wanted to shoot in sepia but still have everything retained, you could do it. It's just I love that. I love that capability, and I have the Nikon ZF, so it's literally a switch to go from color to black and white.
That's cool.
Yeah, they made it so easy on that camera.
Wow. Yeah, I shot in black and white. I had a Fuji, one of those smaller, I don't know, XT1 or something like that. And I love to do like architectural and street photography, and I shot primarily in black and white with that camera, and I loved it. It was a really great experience. But like you said, shooting in RAW gives you the ability to get that color information back at any time. Yeah. And I think, really, like that's what shooting in RAW really is all about, is you capture as much information as possible as the camera can possibly capture, and then you can decide later what to do with that information. So you don't have to use all of that information. You don't have to go in there and edit it, but if you want to, it's there. So it's, for me, that always made sense. It's like, well, if I'm out here, putting in the work, and I'm out here taking these pictures, like, let me use my camera to the greatest capability of this device, and then I can decide later what I want to actually do with this. But it's again, it's up to the individual shooter. I do get situations where a person might want to shoot in JPEG, like if you're shooting a wedding or a sporting event or something like that, and maybe frame rate is incredibly important to you. You need to shoot in the maximum frames per second, or you need to keep your file storage as minimal as possible, or like super quick delivery to your clients, or maybe you're just a really experienced photographer who can really nail the shots that you need to in JPEG, and you're confident with that. I think there's arguments for it, for sure, but it's going to be down to the individual, for sure. Yep. And I think storage is one of those things that, like, as time moves forward, it just gets cheaper and cheaper, like, financially. And when we first started, I had like maybe a 32 gigabyte memory card was like the biggest I could buy, you know what I mean? And that was like $200 something or something, I don't know. Yep. And now you got terabyte, SD cards, right? Like crazy stuff. So
it is so crazy.
Yeah. And so I think, storage is one of those things where like, yeah, you do have to pay attention to it. But as we move forward, storage becomes less and less and less of an issue in my personal opinion. So that argument for me personally is, I would rather just capture the high quality stuff and not worry so much about the storage. But that's, again, it's down to every individual. If you really want to save on storage and save money, and also, if you're doing cloud storage, if you want to save money with your cloud storage, that makes a lot of sense too. So I don't want to say there's a right and a wrong way, because I really think it's down to the individual.
Yeah. One more question about RAW versus JPEG. When it comes to editing with, let's say, Photoshop's AI removal features, their content fill features, things like that, do you notice, from your experience, any, not necessarily performance changes, because of course if it's a JPEG, it should be faster, but in theory, but from the quality standpoint of what the AI can produce in Photoshop, for example, is it better with all the data it can get from the RAW file versus the JPEG?
In my experience, no, it's not any better. I don't know how this works from a technical standpoint, but I think basically what the AI does is take like a snapshot of your image, and like a relatively low resolution snapshot of your image, and that's going to be a JPEG. It's honestly like a super compressed version of whatever you're sending, and then it uses AI to analyze that data and then sends back a super compressed version, and then like decompresses and enlarges it back on your screen. So anything that you're going to be doing with AI is actually going to be like way lower quality than what you'd be able to capture in your camera. And I would say that, the benefits of editing in RAW are like, let's say your white balance is off or your exposure's off. You can fix all that first, and then if you need to do some object removal and things like that, then you're going to be doing the AI on top of that. But I would say get your image looking the best it possibly can in your RAW editing software, whatever program you're using, and then use the AI stuff on top of that.
Cool. Let's talk about storage and organization and how you're going about it with all the enhancements and changes that have come over the years, because like we've gone from memory cards to hard drives to RAID drives to NAS drives to SSD drives. It's like
RAID drives. You just brought up a headache for me. It's like, why?
Yeah. So I heard a little birdie told me that you've gone cloud, and I want to hear all about this. I want to hear all about this.
Yeah. Years and years ago, I went completely cloud-based. Well, it started out you just ran through the entire gamut, and I've been through it all. Yeah. But, I've been working with a fantastic team of people for many years. And, it's like, I don't do everything myself, I do part of the process. But, I have people that I work with all over the world. And, the idea of sending them hard drives is like not feasible at all. So I have everything on the cloud, and I have done that for years and years and years. And I really, well, I don't know. I don't know why to me, it really just works. I'm trying to think of like a reason, so maybe some arguments against being cloud-based are like file upload times, I have like relatively fast internet at my house. I use Dropbox primarily for my cloud-based storage. So it's not something where I'm actually manually hitting upload on any file, really. Dropbox just takes care of literally everything for me. And I have, decent internet at my house. So it just kind of like I do my work and then I just leave the computer and it just takes care of it for me. And then you do have to pay for cloud storage, but for me, it's totally worth it. And the benefits that I get are that I can access all of my files at any time, anywhere in the world, from any device. I can get to my phone. If I've recorded some content and, I'm out on vacation and someone needs to get access to, whether it's a video or a photo, whatever it is, I can just send them a link directly from my phone. Yeah, to me, it seems like it's the best solution, especially if you're working with a team of people. Yeah, I've gone through the same thing, like you said, hard drives and RAID arrays and backups and backups and backups and, and at one point I went through a move, I moved out of Chicago a few years ago and I had a studio and I had just like boxes and boxes of hard drives and I just threw them all away. I was like, what is all this? I mean, I went through the process of uploading everything online first, but then I'm just like, I'm not going to take all these hard drives with me. Like this is, it's a, and again, like I'm treading lightly. There's going to be people who are listening to this who are like, really want to keep their hard drives. And I'm, I'm not going to tell you what to do. Like this is just what's worked for me. But I like being very mobile. I like minimal setups. I mean, there was a time when I had just like so much gear and so much extra everything. I mean, there was a time when I owned many cameras and I didn't use any of them except for one usually. You know what I mean? Like there was a time when I owned many lenses and personally, I'm just like, I want to be light. I want to be nimble and I just don't want to have more stuff in my life that I don't really need, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So I've sold so much of my equipment, and if I haven't used something in like a year, I get rid of it. No matter what it is. And that's pervasive in my entire life. It's clothing, shoes. Like if I open a drawer and I find something that's like, I haven't used this in a year, I just get rid of it. Lenses, cameras, drones, lights. I mean, literally anything that any possession, I'm just like, I don't want more clutter in my life. So hard drives for me were just like an extra thing that I was finding that I didn't really need. And so I've been cloud-based now for, at least 7 years.
Wow. And
it's been working extremely well for me, and I haven't lost a single file. And,
So how does it work with, let's say, just looking at Dropbox's standard tier, which is, let's say their professional tier, which is 3 terabytes of storage, right?
Yeah.
And let's say you have, my Mac Studio has 2 terabytes of storage. Mm-hmm. I've got applications, I've got all this stuff, I've got all my photos, which is right now is on its own SSD drive, cloned to my other SSD drives. Yeah. And it's, I need to get let's say I want to take the step and go to a Dropbox, right?
Yeah.
How does it work when you're running out of storage internally, but your Dropbox, I mean, I could be wrong because I haven't used Dropbox in years. But doesn't it need the local storage in order to get it to Dropbox? How does it work to make this happen?
Oh yeah, okay, so it's super easy. So basically, like with Dropbox, it's like an application you install on your computer, and then any folder can be like a Dropbox folder. So the workflow that I'd use and that I would recommend to anyone if they're considering Dropbox as a cloud-based storage is I set my Dropbox folder as like my main project folder on my computer. So literally everything that I make, everything that I import, everything that I create, every Photoshop document, every video, every photo, every single thing that I make as a creator or I use goes in my Dropbox folder. So I use the Dropbox folder as kind of like, your C drive or your My Computer or like your main hard drive. Like that's just, the Dropbox folder for me is the very top level of organization, and then literally everything is just inside of that folder. So let's say, I record a Photoshop tutorial, I'll have my Dropbox folder, and in that I'll have like a 2025 folder, and in that I'll have like a 2025, free YouTube folder, and then in that I'll have like the name and the title of that tutorial, and then in that I'll have like, my camera recording, my screen recording, my audio recording, the Photoshop document, before and afters, thumbnails, everything like that, it's in there. So all that is in there, but it's all nested within that that Dropbox folder at the very high end. So literally anytime I'm done making any content on my computer at all, it automatically gets uploaded to Dropbox. And when I want to free up space on my computer, all I have to do is right click on that folder and say make online only. So it gets rid of it on my computer, but it stays online. It stays in Dropbox on the cloud. And if I want that information to be pulled from the cloud back onto my computer, I just right click on any folder and say, make available offline, and it just pulls it right down from the cloud and puts it right on my computer.
Will it automatically, let's say you're filling up your local storage, will it automatically go to online only if it detects, or do you have to manually
It'll tell you
for folders? It will.
You do it manually, yeah, and it'll tell you. It'll just, you'll get a little Dropbox icon that says like, hey, you're running out of storage on your local device. Yeah. And because I'm like a very organized person when it comes to my computers, and so for me it's actually quite simple, because I just everything is organized by year, everything is organized by project, everything is organized by date. So if it's just, for instance, a project I did a month ago that I just, I don't need immediate access right now, I just go right click and say make online only. It just removes those files from my local device and puts them in the cloud. So I do this, kind of frequently, but I don't have, let me just go to my settings for my Mac computer. I have storage. I had a MacBook Pro that had a huge amount of storage. I bought one with a crazy amount of storage because I'm a photographer, I need all this storage on my computer. And then I never wind up using it. So my current computer has 1 terabyte of storage, which is, and I produce a lot of content. Yes, I produce mainly video content. So, I produce, more than, I couldn't throw out a number, but I'm producing probably a terabyte worth of content a month. You know what I mean? Because I teach, it's videos. It's nonstop video content. They're big, it's just big files. And in that, I teach raw photo editing. So I produce a lot of content. But I just don't keep any of it on my computer. As soon as I'm done with the project, I just say, get it off my computer. I don't need it here. I don't,
Yeah. Do you think that a workflow like this, because, and let me preface this because, Lightroom catalogs are notorious for corrupting when you throw them into a cloud platform.
Lightroom catalogs are notorious for corrupting in general. Lightroom catalogs are horrible. Forget.
So do you think that a workflow like this, where you're utilizing a Dropbox type platform, would work better for people not using Lightroom Classic and using more of even a Lightroom desktop on the local side, or just Photoshop Bridge or anything like that I don't know, maybe even the lower volume photographers rather than the higher volume, because if you get them up to the cloud, now you need to access, you have to download them all.
Right, yeah.
Do you think that this workflow suits a certain type of photographer versus another?
I think it's more about a mindset, right? I think that, if we're being truly honest with ourselves, do you need instant access to that photo shoot that you did 6 months ago?
No, but the ones that you just shot, right? You would want to have locally until you don't need it anymore. But
which is usually what, a month?
Yeah, probably
2 months. I don't know. Until you're ready. I'm a pretty organized person. So when I do a photo shoot, I have all of my raw images go into a folder. I have all my PSDs go into a folder. I have all my JPEGs go into a folder whenever I export it out, right? And then, when I publish that project and I'm done with it, it's I don't really need this on my computer anymore. Let's say a month from now, I'm I want to go look at that PSD again, or I want to go look at those JPEGs again. I just go right click on that folder and say, make available offline. And then, in 20 minutes, they're back on my computer again. It's just, or if I wanted to get literally all the raw files back from that photo shoot on my computer again, I would just right click on the raw folder and say make available offline, and then a couple hours later they'd be on my computer. So, it's like, for me, I don't know. I don't think I'm a traditional, like I don't think my workflow is very traditional. I think like there is I'll just share like a brief personal story with you. So like a few years ago, I was living in Chicago and I had a photo studio and I worked with a bunch of people, and like we had a big space and a lot of stuff and just like, many computers, many cameras, many hard drives, many chairs, many desks, many computers, many everything. And I moved internationally. And when I did that, I literally got rid of everything. I got rid of almost everything that I owned, period. I went from, having a lot of stuff to having literally almost nothing, having almost no possessions. And when I did that, I just realized how much stuff I kept in my life that really had served its purpose already. Like it was not necessary to keep in my life. Like I was throwing away audio visual cables to like the red, yellow, and white cables from a VCR and stuff like that, And I'm like, why did I have this? Like literally, I couldn't give it away. No one wanted it. It was basically trash. It was like when I had to get rid of it, it was trash. No one wanted it. I couldn't sell it. So then I made the realization, like, I am holding on to actual trash. Like I'm organized and holding on to and keeping in my house trash. It served a purpose once, but it no longer serves a purpose for me and sometimes for anyone else. And that just kind of changed my outlook on everything. It's like, why hold on to this stuff that, like, in the idea that maybe someday I'm going to need it again? And here's the thing with online storage. If you do maybe someday want or need it again, you can get it back, but it might not be instant because you have a hard drive right there. It might just be you have to wait, 6 hours or overnight for it to download back on your computer. But also, let's be honest, like, how many times have you put something on a hard drive and then 5 years later you go to plug in that hard drive and you lost the power cord for the hard drive, or the hard drive doesn't even work anymore, or you put it on the wrong hard drive and you can't find the right hard drive for it anyway? That was never a foolproof plan either. I feel like I've lost more important files from putting them on hard drives and then try to retrieve them on hard drives than I have from anything that I've done on the cloud, personally.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I got into a little bit of a rant there. I'm realizing by the tone of my voice. Sorry about that. But yeah, I don't feel the need to like have everything that I've ever created at my fingertips, because I think, I really tapped into like a hoarding mentality that I think I had with just like keeping so much stuff around. And now I'm like, if I'm not using it right now, just get it away. Like I don't want it around me. You know what I mean?
Let me ask you this.
I'm a weirdo though. Everyone else that's listening is like, no, Aaron, you suck. You're so wrong. We need it.
I'm sure there's a lot of people that feel the same exact way as you do. I mean, look, I also like to minimize, and I will admit I have way too much stuff for my comfort level, but including a VCR with that cable.
Yeah.
Because every so often I have family who's like, digitize this VHS tape for us. And I'm like, so I can't get rid of it.
Right, right.
So I'm right there with you.
Yeah, you're right there. Exactly. Yeah. And then if you did get rid of it, you just be like, no, I can't do that anymore. Right. I got rid of it. Go hire an online service to digitize it for you. I'm not in that business anymore.
Yeah. Let me ask you this as we wrap this up. You're using Dropbox.
Yeah.
Is there a reason? And maybe the reason was just the timing was right, and they didn't have a competition so much at that point. But was there a reason you went with Dropbox over a Google Drive, which does similar things, versus something else that might be out there competing with it, versus another, versus Adobe's own built-in that's in Lightroom Desktop now that has the cloud with online offline capabilities too? Is there a reason why Dropbox versus any others?
I've used almost all of them to answer your question. Dropbox is very like cost effective in terms of what's on there. So like I'm looking at my Dropbox now, and I have 36 terabytes of information on my Dropbox, and I pay $100 a month.
Wow. That's a lot of storage.
36 terabytes.
That would be a lot of hard drives or RAIDs. I said the bad word again. Or whatever drives sitting there in your office.
I want to do a screen share. It's 36 terabytes, and I don't think about it ever. I don't. The other thing too is like, again, I'm not terribly attached to physical belongings. Yeah. And also things happen, and like, what happens if I'm on a trip and, I'm on a boat and my backpack falls out of the boat and my computer is in my backpack, and all of a sudden my computer is at the bottom of the ocean. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a deal. It sucks to lose a computer, but guess what? I didn't lose a single file.
Yeah.
Or my phone gets broken or lost or stolen. I didn't lose a single file, And to me, that's like, you can buy a new computer anytime. It sucks to have to pay for a new physical device, but like, those photos of a wedding, you can't get that back. You know what I mean? Yeah. If you have it only on a physical device, you can't get that back. There's no getting that back. But you can go out and buy a new computer any day of the week. And yeah, I feel like the Dropbox plan works for me because it syncs to everything on my computer. So again, I have my main hierarchy folder on my computer. Like everything that I create goes in my Dropbox folder. So when I'm done making any content, it just automatically uploads to the internet. I don't think about it at all. I don't hit upload on it. I do nothing. And then everyone in my team has access to the folders that I give them access to. So I have someone who helps me editing my videos. I have someone who helps me publish my videos, who helps me write descriptions, who helps, manage content. All those people have access to all these files all the time. So I'm not sending anyone any files ever. They just literally, as soon as I'm done making the video, my editor who lives in Europe is editing that video like within minutes. So, for me, and I don't have to do anything. So yeah, for me, it works pretty well. But again, I just want to say that's me. I've gone through, I'm not the standard use case here. Like everyone is going to have a workflow that works for them. So, if I'm saying all this stuff and you're thinking, wow, that is incredibly cringe, you are not my type of person, Aaron, that's totally okay. If you have a workflow that works for you, like, go for it. Like I've gone through the experience of literally getting rid of everything I've owned in my life, and I don't think most people have, and it was a seriously traumatic and difficult experience in so many ways. But on the other side of it, I'm like, okay, I'm good not having stuff. Like that's the lesson that I got. But if you talked to me 5 years ago, I don't think I would have been in that same place.
Cool. I think a big takeaway here for anybody listening is to look at your options for cloud-based storage and see what might work in your workflow. Maybe it's not right for you, maybe it is, but it can't hurt to look into it when you have the downtime. If you're in the middle of your busy season and you don't have the time, don't do it now, but make a note for yourself, add a reminder on your phone to when there's downtime. See what the options are. I know that after this conversation, I'm going to be looking into what is best for me. I'm already using Google Drive now, but not for photo storage in that way. I'm using it for different types of storage, but maybe I could use it because I'm already paying for it. Maybe I could use it for the photo storage, or maybe there's another option. There's so many out there.
There are a lot out there. Yeah, and find what works best for you. And, for me, Dropbox has been my go-to now for years. I'm not paid by them, by the way. It sounds like I'm being paid by Dropbox to say it like this. And I'm like, I should be paid by Dropbox because I say their name all the time. But, I used their service like many, many, many years ago when it was like early days, you know what I mean? And then I came back to it after using Google Drive, after using Amazon S3, after using Glacier drives, after using like all these other online, I've used, Adobe's like Lightroom and cloud storage and all that. I've used every option that I could think of. And it came back to, this is just so easy because there's no uploading at all. Everything that I do just automatically uploads. And the cost, I mean, I pay $100 a month for 36 terabytes.
Yeah. The one that I plan on looking into after this is one I've been I constantly get ads for, and I see it come up in Reddit a lot as well, is Proton Drive, which is from Proton out of Switzerland. I've always been curious about it, so I might give it a try and see how it works. So this has been fantastic. I really appreciate all the insight.
It's like a Google Drive ad, basically, or a Dropbox ad.
Yeah, this episode is not sponsored by Dropbox. Yeah, it's been fantastic. So Aaron, for those who are not familiar with you, with the education you provide, where can listeners learn more about you, see what you do, see what kind of education you offer, and all that fun stuff?
Yeah, so primarily I teach Photoshop, Lightroom, photo editing, and photography, and you can get all that on YouTube totally for free. My channel name is called Phlearn, PHLearn, and we release new videos every single week, and we also have a subscription website that's phlearn.com. It's called Phlearn Pro, and we release full-length, advanced intermediate content teaching photo editing, photography, Photoshop, and Lightroom there as well.
Amazing. Thank you again for joining me and for all the good nuggets.
Thanks, Scott. It's good talking to you.
You have been listening to the Workflows Photography Podcast. To hear more from Workflows, to learn more about our guest, and for an exclusive offer for Workflows listeners, please go to workflowspodcast.com. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time.